name's Q. Today we're going to be talking about two of the greatest dual sports of all time, KLR 650 and the XR 650L. We're going to talk about how they do on-road, off-road, and then we're going to pit them against each other in an all-out, head-to-head, pin it to win it, adrenaline-pumping road race. Wait a second. These bikes are slow. Are we really gonna, is that how we're gonna see who wins a road race?
KLR, let's see what we got. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh.
First up, the XR.
What is the XR650L? Well, let's read Honda's words. According to their website, it says, proven, practical, tough as nails. In times like these, we all need something we can count on. And in the world of big bore dual sport bikes, nothing compares with a Honda XR650L. It's a tough, proven survivor. It's been a cornerstone of our dual sport lineup for decades. Its simple air-cooled 644cc single-cylinder engine offers legendary reliability, plenty of power, while an electric start makes your life easier. Let's take a peek at the water. Long travel suspension and a rugged steel frame, perfected in Baja, smooth out dirt roads and in-town commutes, no matter how lousy the pavement. Other bikes come and go, but the Honda XR650L is in it for the long run. And you know what? That's just the way we like it. Alright Honda, well, its frame is based off a XR600R race bike. They mentioned Baja there. Some of you will remember Scott Summers, who won a lot of the races back in the day, but he rode a big XR600. So specs on the Honda: 644 air-cooled, dry sump, single-cylinder 4-stroke, has a single overhead cam and a 5-speed transmission. The XR makes about 40 horsepower versus the KLR, quoted at about 43. They feel about the same when you're riding them. Something to note about the XR, you can definitely tell the dirt bike when you're sitting on it. The seat height is a crazy 37 inches tall. So that's something that a lot of people don't like. Something that a lot of newer riders especially aren't going to like. Alright, here comes the jump. That's how it's done. Being about 6 foot tall myself, it feels alright, but a lot of times I am on my tippy toes. If I was much shorter, I wouldn't like it too much. There are options, lowering links and that sort of stuff to bring that seat height down. Some people get a lower seat and that'll help that with that seat height. But it is tall, there's no getting around that. But that's the price you pay for the excellent suspension that comes with a bike. So the front suspension, 43mm air adjustable axle made by Showa. It has 16 position compression damping adjustability and overall 11.6 inches of travel. Pretty huge, and they're tunable too. The rear suspension is a single shock with 11 inches of travel. It has 13 inches of ground clearance, so that's also no joke. Probably get more air going here though. When this bike came out, this suspension was kind of space age, new top of the line stuff. Downsides of the bike, well, if you're a beginner, it is a big, heavy bike. Right around 350 is where the bike is. The other downside, in my opinion, is the tiny fuel tank, 2.8 gallons, that's it. I go normally about 80-ish miles, depending on how hard I ride. I hit the reserve before at just 60 miles. Another thing people bring up, I don't know if it's actually a downside or not, but there are reports on the internet of these bikes getting really hot. Yeah, that's the way. Whoa! That's not the way. There's no temp gauge on here, but a lot of guys will get an aftermarket temp gauge. Some guys report it's pretty high. Now, it is an air-cooled bike. If you're going slow, sitting in traffic, or if it's really hot outside, all those things will contribute, and it will get hot. But it's never been a problem for me, and I live in Florida, so it doesn't get much hotter than that. On the road, not bad, but it's not great either. Everything's a compromise when it comes to dual sports. The XR, I found, is a little bit top heavy. With so much ground clearance and so high of a suspension, it does feel kind of heavy, especially in the corners. As far as speed and keeping up with traffic, the XR does just fine. How is it on the highway, you ask? Well, it'll do with the speeds just fine. You've got to have big enough cojones to do it though. It does feel a little bit unstable getting up much past 65. Now, I did find it improved when I scooted up on the seat right up to the gas tank, so I weighted the front tire a little bit more. When I was riding on the highway, that did feel like it made it more stable. But, you know, the bike will go around 100 miles an hour, and you can cruise around 65 all day. Well, getting passed by trucks, well, that's an experience that only those who ride light bikes on the highway know about, and you definitely get blown around.
Let me give you a couple caveats before we really get into the KLR. And it's that some of you guys might be wondering, hey there guy, why is your KLR smoking worse than Snoop Dogg on his debut album? Well, answer's right here, man. These piston rings are completely non-existent. They're gone. I mean real bad. This thing will burn a quart of oil, and I'll run it for an hour, it'll burn a quart. So yeah, I'm in dire need of a rebuild on this one. But you know what? I just figured I wanted to make one more video with it for you guys before we go ahead and rip that cylinder head off and bore it out, and you know, maybe we'll do a video series on that too. Also, the fairings are currently not on the bike. They're in a pile on the floor right there. I was doing some valve work, and I'll be danged if I wasn't too lazy to put them back on. But you know, I kind of liked the look of it, you know, without the fairings on there, and I really don't ride highway that much, so I didn't need the wind protection, but the fairings exist, and that's what they look like. And we got some chrome, but you don't need that. This KLR has crash bars, it has panniers, it has aftermarket foot pegs, handlebar risers, Lex exhaust, and I think that's all the goodies it has. Oh, those cool aftermarket lights up front, I guess, too. These are not stock. Oh, and some of you guys might be like, hey guy, what's all this weird stuff up here? This was part of the windshield riser set I got. And anyway, the windshield is non-existent now because well, they tend to break off if you kind of just fly through them like that when you crash the bike. But anyway, this is just a plate you can get and screw on, phone holders, GPS stuff, all that jazz, and this will bring your windshield out. But yeah, let's get to it then.
Here's Cowie's ad from '87 when this thing came out. We have broken the performance barrier again. Introducing the all-new KLR650, a motorcycle that rules towns, twisties, and trails alike with a record-setting 651 cc's of liquid-cooled 4-stroke power. That makes it the strongest thumper in its class. with a lot more power and torque than the 600cc crowd. There's an exclusive new mini fairing to keep you more comfortable on long weekend trips. And every KLR650 features a push-button electric start. You can let the good times roll without working up a sweat. The plush suspension and wide tires are ready for the toughest terrain, from New York City streets to Rocky Mountain heights. Whenever you ride, a 6-gallon tank and exceptional fuel economy, let alone 2 people and their gear, go up to 350 miles between stops, on the trail, on tour, or out on the town. Triple your fun today with performance that goes beyond conventional boundaries. Ride the 87 KLR 650. So what is the KLR 650? Well, it's a 650cc dual sport. The specs are, it's a 4-valve, 4-stroke, dual overhead cam engine, 651 cc's. The KLR is definitely more of a road-focused bike than dirt-focused.
Speaker powers, come to me! Oh! Ouch! Woo! That bottomed out pretty bad.
Now you can instantly feel the difference when you sit on this bike versus the XR. Seat height is a little bit lower, and the weight is carried much lower to the ground, which gives it a lower center of gravity. It feels much more comfortable and safer in the turns. I have a lot more confidence leaning this bike over than the XR. Many times on turns I scrape the pegs on this thing, where the XR, well, that never happens. The KLR has 43 horsepower, claimed anyway, but the power feels about the same as the XR. The one thing that I've noticed about the KLR is you can definitely feel the tractor factor on this thing. It just keeps chugging. You can't kill this thing. You can't stall the engine. In deep sand, it just keeps chugging through. The biggest difference, though, as far as power is concerned, is just the weight difference. KLR weighs about 80 pounds more, about 440 pounds, I think it is. Some things you'll see the dry weight will be around 350 pounds. That's just not true for the KLR. They're about 430 to 450 pounds, whereas the XR is about 350. And you can definitely feel the weight difference. Being about 100 pounds lighter, the XR does feel a little torquier and a little faster. But the KLR doesn't feel too slow, and it doesn't feel too underpowered. So how's the KLR off-road? That's the big question. Well, the KLR was the first dual sport I had, and you know what? It went everywhere I wanted it to. Some guys will say the KLR is a joke and you can't even ride it off-road, or you can only ride it on dirt roads, or that sort of thing. Simply, that's not true. You can take your KLR almost anywhere. You can even do some smaller jumps, although it does bottom out pretty hard. You can take it in sand. You just gotta be careful with it. You definitely are gonna go a little bit slower than with a bigger bike, but don't let people tell you it can't do that. You just have to be able to ride it and be willing to go a little bit slower than somebody with a smaller bike. The KLR's weight is definitely noticeable off-road, but sometimes it does help. You get that thing going, it has so much momentum, it can get you over almost anything. But you definitely will want a good skid plate, because you will be bottoming out. There's no question about it. And no, it doesn't feel as nimble, but the lower ground clearance means that you don't have to worry about tipping over as much. One thing that definitely is a problem off-road with the KLR is it is very hard to get the front wheel up, to pop it over logs or other obstacles. You can do it, trust me, I know, but it is tough. So how do the bikes stack up against each other? Pros for the KLR: good ergos, 6-gallon fuel tank, low center of gravity, gives you more confidence in turns and on the road in general. Cons: suspension is way too soft for serious or high-speed off-roading. Only 8 inches of ground clearance. It's hard to get the front end up, especially when you need it off-road. And generally, it feels really heavy off-road. Pros for the XR: number one has got to be that suspension. This is the best stock setup you can get on a dual sport, in my opinion. Within a comparable price range, you can take this bike and go almost anywhere with a stock setup. Good ground clearance. Cons for the XR: that tiny gas tank with only 2.8 gallons, and also that massive 37-inch seat height. So who wins and who loses? Well, all I can say is this: I love both these bikes. If you're going to be riding more on road and only be going occasionally off-road, or doing light off-road work, or if you're going to be doing adventuring or touring, the KLR is the bike for you. If you're going to be doing a lot more off-road and doing short stints on the highway, the XR is perfect for you. You can mod either of these bikes to get them closer to the type of riding you want to do. Yeah, you can take an XR and make it more roadworthy. You can fit a cush drive on the rear, get a bigger gas tank, and a windshield, and it'll do okay on the highway. And yeah, you can get a KLR, beef up the suspension, and try to shed as much weight as you can. But I'm reviewing the bikes in stock form, and while you can do those mods, the KLR is never going to be as good as the XR off-road, and the XR is never going to be as good as the KLR on road.
As far as one versus the other, it really depends on how you're going to ride. If you're going to ride a lot of road, the KLR is the bike for you. If you're going to ride more dirt, ride the XR. Both of them are a blast to ride, but don't get too caught up thinking about buying bikes. Just buy one and get out there and have a blast.
Time to ignore everything I just said about both these bikes, because there is a way to see which one is better, and that's a race. And now, it's time for the unavoidable, the inevitable. Anytime there's two machines that go, one of them has to be faster. Go. Well, I guess that'll about do it. I sure hope you guys enjoyed the video. I sure did have a blast making it. Anyway, well, this was my first try, so if you see something I could have done better, send me a little comment in the comment section and I'll try to fix it for next time. I've got a lot of exciting content planned on this channel, so you won't want to miss it. Anyway, this is Q signing off. See you next time.